Welcome to the tea table. I am so happy you've joined me today. We are going to talk about tea in the library. And you know, all over the world, there are many, many special libraries. And I started thinking autumn, October, we talked about good books and tea. So if you haven't gotten your cup yet, please do pause and then come back and I'll be here. Well, today I have set my tea set up so you can see it. And this tea set is very unique. It looks like a trophy. If you look at the pot, it's a silver pot, and it kind of looks like a trophy. And then it has the matching creamer. So for my cup today, I wanted to show you, I thought I need a special cup. Now this is very special to me and my husband. And this is a very beautiful Ainsley cup that we bought years ago, way up in northern Vancouver Island above Victoria, BC, on our honeymoon. And we took a little bit of our wedding money and bought this cup. And it's just kind of been a special, special cup. I rarely use it, but I love the black and gold. And I thought we will have that for the library because we need to be very inspired today. Here I will pour out my tea. I am using the Tetley tea again. I'm sorry if it's dull, but I can't get away from my Tetley. And we'll put a splash of cream. And then let's taste. This is a really, really nice cup to have a cup of tea in. It feels very old and it's authentic china. You know, a lot of the reproduction is not authentic English bone. This is English bone china. Really makes a difference. And for our little treat, I thought we need to have nourishment, healthy. So this is my little table here. I lit a candle for us. This is a little candle in a brass holder. And I put a little pumpkin on the table for October. And these are very special. They are homemade. They are very healthy, hearty bran muffins with blueberries and a date in the middle. Nothing bad. They're all very healthy. They're actually sweetened with banana. There's no sugar in them, and they're delicious. Okay. Well, and for tea, I wanted to show you, this is a little tea tin that I have had, and it's the Queen. It's commemorating her 60th anniversary some years back, and when I get my Tetley tea, it fits just perfect in there, and I leave it in the tin foil, and then here's the Tetley tea bag. Now, I also like to combine Tetley with Earl Grey, Tetley with Breakfast in Paris, which is a little unique. It has a lavender, and I like to combine it with a loose leaf Ahmad. You can experiment and see what you like because tea is so fun and there are such varieties out there. Well, when I originally chose this outfit today, I thought this is what I consider old-fashioned librarian, with the lace collar and the dark top. And I've always loved libraries and I've always loved books. And I have been researching, you know, every town in America has many, at least every county, have these beautiful historic libraries that are made by Dale Carnegie, you know, and he was a Scottish businessman that made his money in steel and in trains. And he had worked so hard, and books meant so much to him that he wanted to donate, and he began to build libraries all across England and Scotland, and then in America. And there are 800 libraries still functioning as libraries, and some of the other buildings, like in our town, it's used for a different purpose, but it's still there. And the architecture is beautiful. You could look up Carnegie. You know, what a good use of money. He was very much into world peace and education of the young, and that was his goal. That's where he wanted to put his money. And I wore a couple cameos. This is a little rose cross cameo, and then this is a very traditional cameo with pearls. And I just love cameos. I love cameos. I have really appreciated them. The older I get, the more I like them. And when I started really thinking about libraries, I'll tell you what prompted my thought was my own college library experience. I graduated from the University of Washington with an undergraduate degree, and there is an incredible library on the university campus called Susello, and you can look it up. And this was built over 100 years. Well, it was finished in, I think, 1926, but it was started before, so it's right 100-year mark. And the architects who designed it went all over the world and looked at what they could find for inspiration in architecture for libraries. And they went to Boston and saw the beautiful library there. They went to Oxford and they saw these beautiful high ceiling, wonderful. It is a dome, and I had intended to bring a picture of the library because I looked it up online. You can look it up. And it was designed with the thought in mind that we can sit in a library and think beautiful thoughts, and we can think higher thoughts, and the higher ceiling, and it is like a cathedral. It is probably one of the most beautiful buildings in the state of Washington. We have a beautiful Capitol also, and Temple of Justice. But that library at the University of Washington truly is momentous. And then I started thinking, in all my history, I study a lot of church history. And you know, there's the famous library in Alexandria, Egypt, the first of its kind. And it came when Alexander the Great, you know, had conquered the then known world. And then he died at a very young age. I think he was only 32. He said, there's no more worlds to conquer. And so it was divided among his three main generals. Well, one of them was Ptolemy, and that begins with a P, Ptolemy. And Ptolemy got Egypt and Alexandria. Well, of course, Alexandria is named after Alexander. But as I studied, many, many cities were named after Alexander, but this was such a special city because it sits right on the cusp of the Nile River and as it goes into the Mediterranean Sea. So it has an incredible waterway, and it was where the famous lighthouse, you've seen probably pictures, the seven wonders of the ancient world. The lighthouse there at Alexandria was one of the wonders of the ancient world. And the Ptolemies ruled, and it ended up that Cleopatra was a Ptolemy. And I won't go into her whole story, but she, you know, dies about 60 years before Christ. So They ruled for about 300 years, and after she died, the Ptolemy kingdom was taken over by Rome. Well, this incredible library that sat in Alexandria was used by the early church, and it was a center. Alexandria became a center of Christianity and study, and it was where, when the Roman ruler had wanted, about 270 years before Christ, he had wanted the Bible, the Hebrew Old Testament Bible, translated into Greek. And that's where it's called the Septuagint. And that's where they gathered the 70 elders that translated the Old Testament, the Tanakh, it's called Hebrew, into Greek. And that's what the early church used as their Bible. Well, that all happened in Alexandria. Well, sadly, when Julius Caesar came and was fighting and trying to take Alexandria, a fire, he was destroying the boats, and the dock caught on fire, went through the town, and burned the library to the ground. It was so sad. They saved some of the scrolls, and then they rebuilt the whole library, and it was rebuilt. And then when the Muslims came through, they destroyed the library. But there was a rescue operation underneath, and the scholars took as many of the books and the vellums and the scrolls and put them on a boat and got them up the Mediterranean and got them to Florence. And they were hidden. They were so afraid they were going to get stolen. They were hidden. Then the people that did it died, and it was forgotten. Well, fast forward, in the 11 and 12 and 1300s, when you have the beginning of the Renaissance, that's what created the Renaissance. They found those books in Florence, and it was Plato and Aristotle and the Bible and the scriptures. And so, Renaissance means rebirth. And so that was the beginning, the end of the Dark Ages, which is the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. And that was the beginning of really the modern world. And so that's the story of the Alexandria Library. And if you look that up, the pictures, the old pictures, it's again these high ceilings and books all the way to the ceiling, beautiful, with the idea that people could sit in an atmosphere and think. When you have a high ceiling, you can think better. I really believe it's true. And then I was thinking, okay, well, what is the most special library I've ever been to in my life? Well, I thought of the British Museum Library Reading Room. So I looked it up. Come to find out, they closed it and moved the books to a new library in London. And then they were using this reading room for displays of different, museum displays that came through. And then now they've closed it, and they're trying to decide what to do with this incredible reading room. It's a dome that goes all the way to the ceiling, like truly a capital or a cathedral. You must look that up. I'm so sorry I don't have pictures to show you, but you can find this online. It's worth looking at. And all the great writers visited the British Museum. They called it the reading room, and the writing room, and I mean, so many authors, famous authors, wrote their books there. I could name them off, but I know that Charles Dickens went there, Oscar Wilde went there, and a lot of others. So anyway, that's the library. So we're in my little library. When I look, I love my little library, but it doesn't compare to those. But we all have our own little libraries, whether it's a shelf of books or a bookcase, or I have my walls And behind me, I have a variety of many books. This shelf here has all the Russian writers, Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and, the great Russian writers. Those books take you to truly another world. You have to have tea for those books, yes. Well, that brings me to a book I want to tell you all about. And this book changed my life. And I don't say that lightly. I read this book when my second child was born, and he was born in about early 80s. And this is the book that it's about. And her name, this is the only picture I have of her. If you can see it, her name is Marie Ivanov. And that picture was on the cover of the book. And that's when she's, in her later years in America. But this woman was so special. And I know that some of you on the Tea Talks have read Marie Ivanov. And you've all said the same thing as me. It changes your whole perspective. In fact, my husband, who generally is reading theology, he read this book. And he has never done this. He stayed up all night to finish the book. He said, I couldn't put it down. After he read this, he read the entire body of Russian. He had read Solzhenitsyn and a few Russian writers, but then he got into Tolstoy and into Dostoevsky and into Pushkin, and it's another world. Russia is not a country, it's a world. And this woman, I want to show it to you again. You can only find her book. It's out of print, but you can find it online. And I have friends that have found it. One of my sons, who was not really one of the readers in the family, he got so into the book when he was in his early 20s, he bought it for all his friends for Christmas on his own. I thought that was pretty impressive. And it's a book you don't want to just read once. You have to go back and you revisit it, and it's like, it's brand new again. And then you read it again. And what it basically is, she was born in probably turn of the century in Russia into an aristocratic family. Her grandfather knew Leo Tolstoy. He visited their home when she was there. And they had a beautiful life. They were very Christian, very benevolent, very charitable. Her grandparents, the Sherbatovs, had donated their fabulous mansion to become a hospital in Moscow, the only hospital that was in Moscow. And she had been raised, though she was an aristocrat. And just like you've seen, you've seen Russian movies with that era where, they have the troika. The troika is the carriage, and the horses. That was her era. They got around with horse and carriage, and only the wealthy could have a horse and carriage. But her family was very forward thinking, and they were always trying to help people. And she had actually been invited to be a lady in waiting to the Tsar and Tsarina. She had turned it down, but then she fell in love with Nicholas, a wonderful, idealistic young engineer. And it tells all about his home. And his home was in Ukraine. And so you learn, you go to all these places. Well, I don't want to spoil the book for you, but her whole family, the Russian Revolution comes, and because Nicholas is idealistic, he feels he can't leave Mother Russia. He must help the people. He naively stays, and within a year, he's off in the gulag and never to be seen again. But Marie, she is by herself because her entire family has left and no one can get out. There's no mail, there's no infrastructure. She lives through World War I, she lives through World War II, and she survives by her knowledge of language. She knew French, German, and she had wonderful tutors. And the thing I love about Marie Ivanov, that I identify with her, she was always hauling her books around with her. That's the way I was when I was young. I always had a bag of books with me. I loved my books. Books take you to another place. And I think we've all become much too dependent on our phones and our screens. And I am talking to myself. I want to get back into my books this winter and have my tea and my books and my fire. And, you know, in the book, she is such a noble person, and she writes with such intelligence and brilliance that she lifts you up, and you see the whole situation from the eyes of a woman that is living in it and doesn't even know what's going on, but survives. She survives. She's strong. And God helps her. She is a Russian Orthodox, very devout Christian woman, and she knows that she makes it because of God's help. It's important to remember that we have someone to help us when things are too difficult and we don't know which way to go. We can ask him and he'll help us, right? Yes. Well, one other library I want to talk about, and I've mentioned this before, Chatsworth House. All the big estates in England that you go into, they all have incredible libraries that they have been collecting for hundreds of years. The manor, and they don't dispose of their books. They treasure them. And then one more little story. When I was in the Lilienfeld Cathedral, and that's in Lower Austria, and it's a monastery, and every monastery has, oh my goodness, they have the libraries you wouldn't believe. They have books that are gold and jeweled and they have original documents from biblical times. I mean, they treasure their books, and they have one of the monks or the priest in charge of them. When you go in, you have to ask permission to look. They treat their books with such respect. Well, there's a true story that happened. In World War II, the Lilienfeld Monastery was being threatened, the whole town. The Russians were just out in the woods, and the people knew it. And they were basically in a hopeless situation because they didn't have anyone to help them. And Austria was losing, and so the priest said, "Come in quickly." And he got everyone in the church. All the people crammed in the cathedral from the town. They got on their knees and prayed. This is a true story. This is a Catholic church. They all got on their knees and prayed. And then the priest got an idea. He said, "I have an old Russian Bible up in the library that's very valuable." So he went and got it, and then he opened the door and went out to the Russian soldiers and showed them the Bible. And to their credit, they had respect for God's word. And they just stopped, backed up, turned around, and left. And Lilienfeld Abbey and Cathedral and town, not one person was harmed. Isn't that a story? That's a story. Our books are precious. And of course, God's word is the most precious book. You know, all the great books really come from inspiration. So many. Shakespeare, it was right after the Bible was published in English that William Shakespeare was writing all his stories. And he gave credit. He said, "The Bible is the greatest inspiration I have." So many of his stories have the theme of, good and evil and good triumphing over evil. Well, okay, it's been so nice. I have people that love to see a little purse. And I thought, okay, this is a little purse. This is a patent purse, but I have pearls. There's pearls on this. There's pearls on this. There's pearls on this. There's pearls on this, and there's pearls on these really different earrings. These earrings are actually made out of cloth with a little pearl and a diamond. Isn't that fun? So this purse, I thought, okay, it may be fancy for a library, but not really. Our library is, we're having tea with a silver pot. So this little purse has a pearl clasp, see? And it has, I like this chain because you can wear it over your shoulder and then your hands are free. So that's the little purse for today. And it's a classic design. And it could have been in any time in history with maybe different material. You know, in the olden days, they made purses out of fabric, and I have some. I have a wonderful lady named Joy. That's a tea lady, and she sent me some lovely vintage purses that I am going to show you. She sent it for you for the tea time table. So I'll try to bring one of those next time. Well, let's make a choice and have our tea, and let's have a good book. And, you know, if you think one of the classic books is too difficult for you to understand, get a children's version. Do you know, I used to read to my kids so many children's versions of the classics. It's a great introduction. And then you can take the classic up and read it and really understand it. You know, it doesn't hurt. So, okay, thank you so much for joining me. And I pray that you all have a fabulous week. And remember Marie Ivanov. She endured, but she won. And she survived. And she helped so many people on her way, on the road, and the way she walked. God bless. Look forward to seeing you next time.